All right, we are now recording. This is encounter 29/30. We're really pushing through the end of the book now. We're not going to take our time with the end of it. Basically, we're going to cover now geminate roots and first noon verbs. Try to get through it. We just need now to get through the end of the book. That's our goal, just to run. So first, we're going to look at geminates. So last week we read Jonah chapter 2, as you know, and then we hit chapter 3 on Tuesday. When we were reading chapter 2, there was a verse in the poem that appeared twice. So I want to look at, here's John joining us. So I want to look at this verse from Jonah chapter 2. Somebody want to read it?
I can. Jonah chapter 2, verse 4a. Vatashlicheni metsula bilvav yamim venahar yesov bevni. Yesovveni.
Okay. Notice these two words. Notice these two words are in construct, so they need to be read together. Bilvav yamim.
Bilvav yamim.
We would imagine that this one would have a missing preposition like le, to. So you cast me to the depths, in the heart of the seas, and a river surrounded me. You remember that we went over this last week on Thursday. Hi, John. Welcome. Can't hear ya. You're on mute. Let's see. Ask you to unmute.
Okay, I'm here on my iPad. So,
okay, fantastic. Well, your iPad looks great.
Good.
So here we are. Do you want to read this second verse, John?
Afafuni, Mayim. Afafuni, Mayim, Ad Nefesh Nechum.
This letter here is Tav.
Tav, yeah. Yes. To whom?
To whom. This word was in our Genesis reading from last course. That the abyss. V'choshech al pnei tehom. Darkness upon the face of the abyss.
Oh, right. Yesovveni.
Yesovveni. And so this word here, Yesovveni, and this word here is the same. That's what I'm getting at. That the same word was used twice in the poem. The word here, afafuni, this is the fu is plural, and the subject is mayim, water. Even though water is singular in English, in Hebrew it's plural. Afafuni mayim ad nefesh. So let's look at the translation of those verses. Okay, so Jonah 2:4. Notice Yesovveni here and Yesovveni. You cast me into the deep, into the heart of the seas, and a river surrounded me. A river in the heart of the seas, meaning a current. Like we talked about that in our translation. And the second one, water encompassed me to the point of death. This is water encompassed me up to death, until death. The abyss surrounded me. So we've got this idea of surrounded me. And this is a verse we're going to look at real quick. Not a verse, but a root. The root of the verb, yesovveni, is savav, samech bet bet. So notice that bet, these are the same two letters, samech bet bet. When a root ends in two of the same letters, okay, we could say that the second and third root letter are the same. So these are called geminate. Geminate, from the Latin word geminus, meaning twin. Like Gemini, we say Gemini is twins. It's not technically Gemini, it's Gemini in Latin, Gemini. Geminus is a twin. So Gemini are twins. So we're going to look at roots that have this geminate nature, that they have two of the same roots. They have twin root letters. Okay. As we move on, notice this word yamim. There's a dagesh chazak, dagesh forte in the middle root there, in the middle letter. Yamim, right? This is a geminate root. Yam is sea and yamim is seas. It's a geminate root. So let's look at a few nouns. We've seen geminate roots in the past, but we didn't really stop to point them out. We didn't spend time on them. So let's look at some geminate roots in nouns. What's the word for mother? Does anyone remember mother? You should go ahead and keep your microphones off mute because we're going to do some interaction. So yeah, M. Okay, so M. The word wave came up in Jonah 2 also. The word wave. It was gal. Okay. We probably don't know the word arrow. Does anybody know that?
It's like
arrow.
Oz.
Chetz.
It's
Chetz. Okay, the word for statute or law is chok. Chok. C is yam, the word that we just saw, yam. And people, like a people group, am. So in all of these cases, look at these words. They look odd because in Hebrew, we know that most words have 3 letters. The root is 3 letters, right? These all look like they have 2 letters, right? They don't really have 2 letters, and we see it when we make them plural. So the word M, mother, becomes imot. Imot. You see the dagesh in the mem? That means it's really aleph mem with the ot ending, imot. So what do you think if we know that the next word is masculine and it's regular, it has a normal masculine plural ending? How would we make that plural, do you think?
Galim.
Galim. And by the way, this is chetz. This thing that's going on right there, that's chetz. So 2 of them, if chetz is 1 and it has a masculine ending, we can't have chetz, we can't have the tzere in a closed syllable. It's going to turn to chirik. Instead of chetzim, we say chitzim. Chitzim. So like M, imot with the E, gal, galim, chetz, chitzim. Imot, chitzim. The same principle that is short I. So also with chok, we're not going to have that long O. It's going to reduce to a U quality. U, chukim. These are laws. Okay, we've come across this in our readings. That God says, obey my laws and my judgments. Chukim umishpatim. Okay, yam, we already saw the plural. What was yam in the last slide?
Yamim.
Yamim. Okay, and the word am people. What's the plural for that? Amim. Okay, so in each case, we do see through the dagesh chazak, we see that doubled letter root. These are all geminate nouns. Okay, we can have geminate nouns. We can have geminate adjectives, because nouns and adjectives can have the same patterns. Notice that the word kol, like all, kol, it's also geminate. It has kaf lamed lamed. So what we see when we say all of me, we see kuli with 2 lameds, like the lamed double dut dagesh. Kuli. I'll write that down for you. Okay, so it's like kaf, lamed, yod. Okay, this is E with the lamed doubled. Okay, kaf, and this means all of me. Kuli. So we could say all of you, kulcha, like your whole person, kulcha, all of you. Kulo, all of him, kulo. All of her, kula. All of them, kulam, kulam. The word all of them, kulam, in modern Hebrew has come to mean everyone. Kulam, everyone, all of them. Okay, so the second iteration of the root letter is lost in some forms, like in the singular. See that the second iteration is lost. There is no dagesh here and here and here. If let's just imagine there could be one. Okay, there are no dagesh instances in any of them because we don't have dagesh at the end of a word. Remember also with the word vayaman at the beginning of Jonah chapter 2, where it said God appointed a big fish to swallow Jonah. The word vayaman is the PL. It's mane with double dagesh, but when man has the nun at the end of the word, you can't double it. All of the PL words, if the middle root ends up somehow at the end of the word because of a loss of hey, then the dagesh drops. So dagesh is lost, meaning that it drops out because it's at the end of the word. And in others, it's disguised. You see, because there's the doubled letter is disguised in the presence of the dagesh. We don't actually see mem. You know, we have aleph, mem, vav, tav, so it's disguised there with the dagesh. Cool? Dagesh chazak. Chazak is forte.
How about the word for father or for son?
Father is av. It does not have dagesh because it's not aleph bet bet. The root is aleph bet hey or aleph bet yod.
Okay.
Remember hey and yod are the same. So in Aramaic we actually see this. Let's see. Trying to think how you say. I think the plural is like avahat in Aramaic, but that hey plays a part in some forms in Hebrew also. And Ben is the same. Ben, I think Ben also has like a hidden hey at the end of it.
So
I don't remember exactly.
Not all two-letter words are geminate, in other words.
Yeah, some of them are missing a hey that's fallen off at the end.
Okay.
Yeah, and some of them might be like a middle weak, and the middle root letter is fallen off. The root in Arabic for son is actually aleph beit nun, ibn in Arabic. I can't say, like, there's something missing from the root in Hebrew. It's probably a hey on the end. We don't need it because, you know, it doesn't appear anywhere, so it's completely theoretical. So looking at the verb again, let's parse it. Yay, this is our fun verb today, yisoveveni. So as we parse, we ask, what stem is it in? That is Karl, PL, Pual, and so on. And remember that there are alternative stems. There are ones that are not the 7. And this is one that is not the 7. What do you think that is, if you look at it?
Is there a hith poel?
Hit poel. There's no hit on the front of it. There's no hit. So if you just get rid of that, if you get rid of hit, then that will be correct what you said.
Polel.
It's poel. These are all 3 of these, 1, 2, and 3 are the actual root letters. So we've got O, and this would be without the vowel reduction, O-E. O-E. So po-el. That's the root, po-el. Okay. Bible Works actually incorrectly labels this in Holiday's lexicon. the concise Hebrew and Aramaic lexicon of the Old Testament. He mislabels this as polel, just like you said, because he looks at it as this and this are like the same letter, so la and la are the same letter, so polel. But that is a mistake, and I'll show you why in the next slide. Okay, so what conjunction is this? That in conjunction means, you know, the perfect, imperfect, participle, infinitive construct, and so on.
Imperfect.
Imperfect. What's our signal that this is imperfect?
The
Prefix.
affix on the front.
Yeah, that prefix on the front, preformative. So it's imperfect. What is its person, gender, and number?
Masculine. Person. Third person.
So you said masculine here. What else did you say?
Third person.
Third person.
Yeah.
And number?
Plural. Plural.
If it were plural, there would be u.
No. Oh, yeah. Singular with the ni.
Yeah, singular.
Ni is different.
Singular. So 3ms, right? 3ms, third person masculine singular. All right. So if it were plural, it would say yisovevuni, because the u means they, right? So yisovevuni. All right. Does it have a pronominal suffix, like an object suffix? These are questions you ask when you do the parsing.
Yes.
Does it have a pronominal suffix? Yes, it does. And what is it?
Ni.
Ni. And so that would be person, gender, number. What is it? Ni is for ani, right?
Ani. First person.
And so first person,
Common.
masculine, feminine,
Common.
common, because it could be man or woman. Singular or plural?
Singular.
Singular, 1cs. So we say yes, it has a 1cs suffix. All right, fantastic. And the next question, what is its root? We've been talking about this the whole time, right? That's the geminate root. It's samech bet bet, okay? And finally, how would you translate it? That is without context, if you're glossing, translating without context. It's imperfect. We translate imperfect generally as the future, right?
So he will something me.
Yes, surround. Mm-hmm.
Surround.
He or it will surround me. Okay, so our complete parsing of the form is going to be what I've got here. Poel, imperfect, third masculine singular with a first common singular suffix from savav, meaning he or it will surround me. In the first verse, it said a river surrounds me, and then the other one, it said, do you remember the second verse we had there? Go back to here. To home, the abyss. The abyss surrounds me. Yeah. All right. And that's our parsing. That's all the parsing we're going to do today. We're not going to spend a bunch of time in parsing again. All right. So many geminate verbs use the poel system that we just looked at with the stem, the sovev. Okay. While some middle week verbs create a polel stem that it looks like a geminate. So last week we saw kum. Last week in the grammar we saw kum that becomes komem, which is he restored. That's polel, where the root is kuf vav mem, but the last root letter is reduplicated.
Oh, okay.
So although the root is technically middle weak with the vav in the middle, it looks like a geminate root in the stem as if it were kuf mem mem. Its stem is polel because it reduplicates the final root letter. The geminate root that's most commonly referenced, as we see in chapter 29, where they only use this verb, is savav, the very root that appeared twice in our reading in Jonah. So that's why we pulled it up again. This root, I want to go over it really quick. This root appears 162 times in the Bible in 63 different forms. It appears 91 times in the Kal, 20 times in Nifal, 1 time in PL, like in PL which was, I think, infinitive construct like sabev. It appears 12 times in the poel, which is what we're looking at now. In the hifil, it appears 32 times, and in the hofal, 6 times. So the kal is the one that is going to be like to turn aside or to turn away. The poel is going to be the word surround. Okay, it's like the idea of savav is like this, is a loop. Like misaviv means like around the corner. Like you go, misaviv is from around. Saviv hasha'on, around the clock. Saviv, around. Environment, sviva, environment. Like this word has to do with the idea of being around something. So in the kal, it means like to turn, like you're going around it, you're turning. Okay. In the poel, it means to actually surround, like we saw here. The abyss surrounded me, or like to close me in. The hifil is it's hisev, and I can't remember the meaning of the hifil, but it's probably something like that, surround also. These things, we don't use them in modern Hebrew. This verb doesn't get used so much, except for lisovev, to turn. We say lisovev, to turn something. Okay, so regarding the patterns that geminates can take, the textbook gives us the following guidance on page 367. So they can appear as a strong verb, savav, in the kal. Okay, savav. Occasionally, they have a doubled first root, that is in the imperfect. Not sure why they do it, but that's what they do. In the imperfect, you see yisov, tisov, esov. I will turn aside. I will turn. Usually, they have doubled second consonant, like the sabu and whatever. So let's look at their forms real quick. So in our second verse from Jonah, we have another before we get to the forms of savav, we have another geminate verb that appeared in Jonah. That was the first word that John read. Afafuni. Afafuni. It's the word afaf. Obviously, it's geminate because it has 2 K's, right, back to back. So it only appears in this one form in the Bible, afafuni, and it appears 6 times, or 5 times, excuse me. It appears 5 times in the Bible. 2 Samuel 22:5, where it's written without the vav. You see afafuni without the vav right there. It's called defective. When you see a form that's written without the mater lectiones, the vowel letter, it's called defective. Defective is where it's missing a vowel letter. So afafuni, and in all the other 4 times it's written out with the vav. It's written 3 times in the Psalms, in the book of Psalms, and once in Jonah that we covered, and once in 2 Samuel. So twice in the Psalms it reads this one expression, afafuni havle mavet, the cords of death have encompassed me or surrounded me. Okay. Once it says, afafuni alai ra'ot ad en mispar, innumerable evils have encompassed upon me. It's kind of odd that it says encompassed upon me. Okay, but that's what it says, so that's what we'll read. Because it's enough to say they encompassed me. We don't need to say they encompassed upon me. In 2 Samuel, it says, afafuni mishbere mavet. Mishbere also appears in Jonah, where he says, right here, kol mishbarecha v'galecha alai avaru. In the same verse, Jonah 2:4. All your breakers and waves have passed over me. So we see that mishbar is another word for a wave. So the waves of death have encompassed me. Afafuni mishbare mavet. Sorry, loud noises outside. So mishbarecha, your waves, and galecha. This is just like a poet using more words than what we need, but it's the idea is all of your waves of different kinds have passed over me because he's under the water. All right. Just as nouns without endings lose their gemination, verb like M or emot becomes M without gemination. Verbs also without endings lose their gemination. So samich bet bet could hypothetically become sav. We have other geminate nouns that look this way. Sav, he turned. Once an ending is added, we do see the gemination again. So with the hey ending for she, we see Saba, she returned, and Sabu, they returned. These forms don't actually exist in the Bible. Neither does Sav, despite the fact that they use it as an example again and again in the chapter. It doesn't exist in the Bible. Saba, Saba, Sabu, because we have other geminate nouns that do appear, so they use this as a model. Outside of the third person, we have an infix, just as we saw with echin. Echin means he prepared. The normal form for I prepared in the Bible is achinoti, achinoti, even though today we say echanti. So hechin becomes hechanti. But in the Bible, the normal form I prepared is hachinoti, like achin, and then it adds an ot infix before the personal pronoun. This happens outside of the third person. So we also see this with the geminate verbs. I'm sorry. So whereas we would see savav, this form is the form for third person masculine singular in the Bible. Theoretically, we could see sav, but it doesn't exist in the Bible. Both of these third person forms appear in the Bible, sabu and savavu. Savavu is the more common. Outside of the third person, we have this ot and on syllable that's been added. So saboti, I turned. Sabota, you turned. Sabot, you feminine turn. Sabonu, we turned. Sabotem and saboten. It has that O infix that's making it longer. I guess the idea is to make it longer because otherwise the word would be swallowed up and disappear. Also, later on, the word sav from Aramaic into Hebrew, sav means grandfather. Sav is grandfather, and saba with aleph or sabta, sabta, which we read as with a soft vowel, soft bet. It's savta. Savta is grandmother. Anyway, so the third masculine singular, third common plural can appear both as sav and sabu. Sabu appears 3 times in the Bible. And as savav and savavu. Savav appears 3 times and savavu appears 11 times in the Bible. The form sav doesn't really appear in the Bible, that we already said. The form tisubena, this is the imperfect. Just like we mentioned a minute ago that the future would be yisov, with the doubled samech, yisov. So this is the future for the third feminine singular, or third feminine plural and second feminine plural. Tesub, like yisov, tesubena, tesubena. This form is important because it showed up a couple of times in Joseph's story, where we read about your sheaves turned and bowed down to mine. They turned and bowed down. Remember? Where Joseph was talking to his brothers and his parents, and he said, your sheaves turned and bowed down. Oh, if you don't remember, that's the form that was used. Okay. All right, so here we go. A note about the Hifil imperfect. We mentioned Hechel in our last session. Hechel means he began. Okay, this was from our reading on Tuesday. Vayachel. He began to walk through the city. Vayachel. He began to walk. So it actually follows the Hifil pattern for geminates, not forced geminates, but for geminates. I think, Ward, I told you that Echel was its own pattern, but come to find out it's not its own pattern. It functions just like other geminates. So he turned, Hesev. I think it's he turned something. He turned it. The Hechel, he began. They turned, Hesebu. They began. Hechelu. Hechelu is a normal form in the Bible. He will turn, yasev, and he will begin, yachel. They will turn, yasebu, and they will begin, yachelu. So the forms match exactly to the other pattern for geminates. And so I'll correct my statement. When I said that Hechel was unique in its own pattern, you just need to learn it. It actually, I had cemented that in my brain because I've seen that form so many times, the word he began and they began and whatever. So I locked that into my brain, but I didn't lock other geminates in the imperfect, in that way, the hifil. Okay, we are going to go very quickly over first noon, and we will be basically done. All right, so first noon, we've already talked so much about the assimilation of noon that it's almost absurd to devote any time to it now. We really have. I think we've looked at it so many times with the nifal and with the future of nafal and all of this. It so happens that when noon is the first root letter, it ends up against other consonants without a vowel in between, and that makes it assimilate, just like it does in the nifal. So in the Karl, the normal future pattern is yiktol or yiktal. Historically, there was also an E theme that I found out the other day because of Aramaic. Aramaic has an E theme. So that's how we get yiten in Hebrew, because there was an E theme. This is why we have yishmor, he will guard, and yilmad, he will learn. Okay. So if we have noon in the first position, we might end up with yin pol, for example. Yin pol, nafal, yin pol. But that noon simply assimilates into the pei, and we actually see yi pol. We've gone over that, right? We don't have a problem with yi pol. All right, so we've looked at a lot of examples of this already, and having talked about it basically ad nauseum, so we won't spend any time on it now. And I would say you're welcome and cut that information right out. Just remember that a verb like naga becomes yinga, yiga with the noon assimilated. So you're going to see this with verbs that he will touch, and you need to, when you see yiga, try to think what could that root be, and remember that gimel hides a noon. In contrast to the hifil, which is with the same root naga, okay, becomes hingia, and that noon assimilates higia. So higia means he arrived or he reached. Okay, higia from nogea. All right, so that is all the information that we have for this lesson. We are not going to do our reading today because all we have left for reading Jonah is one short chapter, and I want to save it for Tuesday. So by your leave, with your permission, this will be our penultimate encounter. We are at the end. The next encounter will present the gutturals in 3 positions, first, second, and third guttural, and we'll be finished with the grammar in this course. Yeah. So one more encounter to go. So what does this mean for our continuation? We have a couple of things that are left in the book. I mentioned this to Ward the other day. We want to look at the introduction to the Hebrew Bible as an appendix, and also Hebrew accents. We've talked about accents a few times. We just want to cover the major disjunctive accents. It's the most important thing. But we'll get into that probably next week. We'll go over both of these things. And no, next week we're doing the last encounter of the gutturals, and then we'll do one more meeting. It won't be an encounter. We'll do one more meeting with these two pieces of information: the Hebrew Bible introduction and the Hebrew accents. We need to go over academic transliteration. I know, but it is at this point, because your knowledge of the Hebrew alphabet is clear enough, transliteration should make sense to you. So we'll spend a session going over it and doing practice. And I'll explain to you also how you can type it. Typing is also a pain. So you can see that this verse that I've typed out says, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et ha'aretz. in the notation, you can see that some vowels are marked with macron. Okay, and we only have one that's marked with a chevron, and the rest are, a lot of them are without macron or chevron. So chevron is the reduced vowel, like the chataf. This is chataf segol. A macron is the long vowel, so kamatz and sere. The upside down E is shva. And the regular E without a mark on it, which is here, is segol. Okay, with S's we have shin, sin, samech, and tzadi. So shin has a caret like this. Sin is like shin, but it has only one caret, one line. Samech is a regular S, and tzadi has a dot under it. So we'll go over it and we'll discuss what are the benefits and why do people use this transliteration, and why do you even care, and why do you need to know it. It's obviously not something that you're going to use normally in your life, but something you should be aware of. So we're finishing Jonah on Tuesday, and I would like to look at the 10 Commandments, Exodus chapter 20, 1 through 13, because that's a passage in Hebrew that you should be familiar with. So if you want to start looking at vocabulary in that chapter, it would be a good idea, comparing it to your English and getting familiar with what's going on there, and we'll go over it together. And then we need to do a general review for final exams, for certificates. It's not going to be too difficult, kind of like last time. And then we need to decide what we're doing in the future, where we're going with this. Do we want to do readings in Hebrew narrative, readings in the prophets? Do you want to do to read through an entire book of the Bible? What you do after grammar is get into text. Normally after you finish a year of grammar, you take a year of readings. So that would be a good idea. After readings, I would like to do that discourse analysis textbook. That really is the direction that I want to go. But anyway, so that's it. You guys have made it to the end of this course. One more encounter, and then just the fun starts.
So you have readings in the narrative and the prophets. Where would things like the Psalms fall?
Psalms are it's poetry.
So there's really three categories there possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
The prophets are highly poetic as well. So again, prophets to tackle poetry. Any feedback or questions?
My primary interest going forward will be the Psalms, either by myself or possibly as part of a group. But although I see the benefit of spending more time with narrative, and I am gradually, slowly working my way through Ruth, but ultimately looking at any of the sort of distinct categories, the Psalms are the ones that interest me the most.
Well, we can do whatever you guys want. With Psalms, poetry generally uses older words and older forms. And so with those, it's a good idea to hold a dictionary close, because even the most seasoned reader of Hebrew is going to have words he needs to look up. So it's going to have vocabulary that's less familiar, and so it's a good idea to have a dictionary at hand. And an interlinear translation is not a bad idea. I have one from art school. It's really nice for Psalms. It has the entirety of the Psalms. I can recommend that to you as well. Okay. Do you have any questions about anything that we've covered over the? Wow, I feel like it's been a year. I don't know how long we've been meeting. A long time.
Very beginning of January, I think we started.
Was it just January?
Yeah, it was right after New Year's, I think.
For the first course?
Yeah,
Let's see.
at least I'm fairly sure. Because you started
I
setting
think
things
that's-
up in 2019, but we didn't actually start
I think
till,
that's true because we had 2 or 3 lessons, and then I went to England. And I
Wow,
was
you're
in
right.
England in March,
yeah,
Mhm.
so it was mhm.
Yeah, our first encounter was posted February 7th, where we went over the Hebrew alphabet and all of that.
Mhm.
It's been a nice trip though.
Mhm.
Right now it's August, so that's not so bad actually. That's what, like 8 months, 7 months, 7.5 to cover a whole year of grammar. Not bad. We did well. So
It's been
yeah, we
great.
can. Yeah. Any issues or feedback about the course? I'm trying to cut out the stuff at the end that isn't so essential. Like things we've already gone over, you know, the first noon. There's no reason why we should spend a whole chapter reading about how noon assimilates, because we've gone over that so many times, you know.
I felt
But
like
anyway,
I had real, I felt like I had real, was moving forward really strongly until we hit the weak verbs. And these chapters just did not, well, as we talked before, there's too much detail to really
Yeah.
kind of figure out what's important.
Mhm. Yeah, that one of the criticisms I had of the book that I actually sent to the authors was that I felt that it needed to tackle the idea of weak verbs earlier on, because we were encountering them a lot in our readings, and every time you run into it in the reading, it's like, oh, it means blah blah blah, and we'll cover it later. It means blah blah blah, and we'll cover it later. If they had tackled just a little bit of it here and there, instead of presenting it as a big project at the end of the book, I think it's better. I tried to bring it in as much as I could earlier on, especially like the verb lakum, to get up. But yeah, I agree that it's like a wall of information. I remember when I learned Greek that I got to the third declension in nouns, and I felt like I hit a wall. Like I was learning well, and I got to the third declension, and it's boom, there's a lot of information there. And I think that's what happened at the end of this book, which is why I just wanted to package it all together, throw it, and move.
and run. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Certainly,
I totally feel that.
my reaction has been, I think, somewhat similar to Ward's on the weak verb front. Read through the chapters, but I just find my brain glazes over with such a mass of detail and move on to something else.
Yeah. I don't remember how we handled weak verbs. I know, see, I learned from CO's book, like I told you. And in this one, he threw the weak verbs in with strong. He threw everything together. He would present the Karl, and then he would throw, like he says, the Karl strong verbs, spend a chapter on getting to know what it is. And like in the next chapter, he would do weak verbs of some sort. There's a Karl perfect. Let's see, he does. Okay, so in lesson 15, or this is 14. So in lesson 13, he does the Karl, the affirmatives of the perfect, shamar, shamarti, and whatever. And then in lesson 14, it's the Karl perfect of guttural verbs, the Karl perfect of third aleph verbs, Karl perfect of third hey verbs, Karl perfect of second yod and second vav. Like, he automatically throws the weak verbs at you, and so you learn them just as a table, you know. So you've got kam, kama, kamta, kamt, kamti, kamu, kamtem, and so on. And you learn them along with the other verbs. And I thought that was a good idea. I don't remember struggling with weak verbs. And then I saw this textbook, how they had put them all at the end. And I wrote them and I said, I think it's a bad idea to put the weak verbs at the end of the course, because at the end of the course, you kind of, in Hebrew, we have this expression, when kids are in the army, because all the kids in Israel, when they're 18, they go to the obligatory service in the army, chovah. And they have an expression when you're finishing your 3 years of service. Basically, people can't count on you to do the same type of work that you were doing in the beginning. You know, in the beginning, you were, you know, you're thinking, oh my God, this is a long thing. I have to be serious and, you know, whatever. At the end, you're thinking, wow, I'm almost done. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired of it. And then that feeling at the end, we call it asak. Asak is an abbreviation of 3 words: avirat, sof, kurs. It's like the avira, the environment, or the avira, the place that you're surrounded by it. What you call environment, right? It's like the feeling of the end of the course, like the end, sof course. You feel the end of the course, and that's how you're feeling. And that's also how we get whenever you're studying. You get to the end of a course, and you're like, okay, we're almost done. I can see the end. And then they throw the hardest material at you, you know? And so your brain is ready. It's in the state that you're ready to be done, and you've processed so much information, and you've done so well, and you think, okay, we're at the end. And then they surprise you with the hardest material. And I think it's not a good idea. That's my opinion. So they should have like woven it in to the chapters before.
On a much less serious note, I got a copy of the book on the Aleppo Codex that you were talking about. And
have you started reading it?
Just the first few pages, but it looks like it's going to be quite interesting and enjoyable.
Yeah.
So
very nice, very nice. I hope you like it. I've already I'm about to turn it back to the library already, but it's a great story. Good. I guess the gutturals. Have you read the chapters about the gutturals already, or have you kind of just ignored it as well? I want to think about what they present and how much. You know, I have to be honest that I haven't read these chapters at the end of the book. I feel like it's too much and I don't want to sit and wade through it.
I think these chapters might be good if they would say, like, here are the key points in about 2 pages, and then for reference, go back for exceptions. There's just too much.
Yeah. Okay, so the second gutturals are basically what we already talked about with like the peel where the dagesh is rejected. A lot of this is stuff we've already gone over and already seen. Yeah, we're gonna make it as easy as we can. Just push through it. Ignore all of the details because we don't need them. And really, most of the issue of weak verbs you're going to discover when you read. There are a new set of books out. Hold on. I say new, but they've been being used for a while. But by John Cook and Robert Homestead. You know them? They're pretty big in biblical Hebrew linguistics and syntax and word order, and they have some really great articles out. But they put together a long time ago. They put together a student's biblical Hebrew grammar, I think it was called, and they put it out for free on their website. And I downloaded it and printed it out, and I was going to use it for a class that I wanted to teach a long time ago, and it turned out not to be such a great grammar. I didn't like it. So even though I had it printed out, I'd flip through it, and I'm like, no, I don't like this. So I didn't use it in the end. But they came out with a new set of textbooks. They were published in 2013, first edition. They're at the point of making a second edition, but this is their beginning, Biblical Hebrew. It's an interesting book. In the front, it is a grammar with lessons, very short lessons. Okay, very short, nice, manageable lessons. You can't use this for self-study because you need a teacher. This book doesn't allow for self-study. It has too many gaps in it. But if you take the book and you flip it over and you look at it from the Hebrew side, it's a comic book. So all of the readings are on the opposite side, and all the grammar is on the English side. So it's a two-sided book, English side for grammar and Hebrew side for readings. It's really nice. They have, once you finish that book, they have a second one, the intermediate Biblical Hebrew. And this one doesn't have the two sides. It's got the comics woven right into the text itself. So it's really nice and very cute. But you will know in these books, they do not teach the weak verbs. They don't teach them at all. They relegate them to the end, and they say, anything you need to know about weak verbs, we have tables in the end of the book, and you can look at the tables.
Wow.
If you come across a form, just look at the tables, and it will fill you in. So that's kind of the way people are going for dealing with weak verbs, because some of them are very, very common, like to arise, to get up. And he got up and he did this, and he got up and he did that, and he got up and he did that. Some of them are very common, but most of them are not so common. So they've been relegated to the end of the book, right, in modern grammars. And in our grammar, they're relegated to the end of the book, but they're made really fat and ugly. So we're going to do what we can just to breeze through it and ignore all of the details. All right. Congratulations on making it this far. I mean,
Thank you. Thank you. It's been
disappointed
great.
that we lost Gio along the way, but we picked up Hoshea. So, all right, so we'll be finishing up next week and then looking at continuation and what our plans are. So, all right. Thank you guys so much.
Okay. Thank you very much.
We'll see you for reading on Tuesday.
Okay, bye, sir.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.